Hello there. I'm Scotty. You're not welcome to my review of The Flash Season 1. As you can see, I have the shirts behind me here. I have three Flash shirts. There's that one over there. Sorry, that one over there. And then there's the one I wore in the announcement video, which is in hamper right now. Uh, so The Flash Season 1. A little bit of history with the Scotty here. I did not watch Arrow when it started. I actually did try to watch the first episode, but I had too much stuff. I had people over, too much stuff going on, weren't paying attention. So I didn't get into it. And I remember reading in TV Guide, and that's still a thing, by the way, because you didn't know they still sell those. About how they're going to make a Flash TV show based off of, spinning off from Arrow, which is like one of the first times that it just started this interconnected universe, the Arrowverse, and it will always be known as the Arrowverse. And like those stupid commercials that's called the CW verse. No. It's the Arrowverse. Fortunately, it's coming to an end. I think that Todd Helbing, who used to be the showrunner of this show in season, I want to say 3 and 4, and 5, whatever. I think he had enough wherewithal to take Superman and Lois and say, hey, we're separating it, because he knew that this show did not have long. So. Oh, if you hear that tapping sound, I figured out what it is. It's water from the air conditioner up from the apartment above hitting the air conditioner thing on the outside. My air conditioner thing on the outside. So you hear that? That's what it is. But so initially it was supposed to be a backdoor pilot, which we sort of got in Arrow, but then they decided to just fully go out. And so the first episode kind of retcons where at the end of the Arrow episode, he's in 2 episodes of Arrow. At the end of the second episode, you see him go home, go back to his crime lab, and then the lightning strikes. He mentions the particle accelerator. I think he doesn't make it in time in that version, and it goes off. It does that or something. But in this version, he does make it to the particle accelerator. He's still at his crime lab, and it goes off. But yeah. So this story takes from the new 52 version of the Flash, where when Barry was a kid, his mother was murdered by the Reverse Flash. And at first, they don't know who it is. You just saw like yellow or red lightning and a yellow figure inside, which no one believes in. And so, all these years later, this incident happens with Star Labs. Particle accelerator goes off. Lightning hits Barry. And 9 months later, he wakes up from a coma. And he is now the Flash. And, yeah. So, in case you don't know, the first main villain of the show is the Reverse Flash, which I think is a good choice. You kind of would have to do that. Although, I could see some shows being like, I know that there's someone out there, I'm the impossible. They didn't believe in the impossible, but I'm the impossible now, and we're going to find him. And they would leave that ultimate enemy for last. But I see this as a kind of combination as I'm watching through the first season, which was very fun to go back and watch, and especially when you have the knowledge of future seasons, they say little things. Like one of the episodes, one of the early episodes when the Flash wasn't really known yet, one of the cops, I think it's Eddie Thawne, takes, his credit for capturing a criminal, and Barry looks at Joe and goes, "It was really me, though." And he's like, and Joe says, "But you're not doing it for the fame." And he's like, "Well," Barry says, "I'm not asking for a museum in my name." And I'm like, Flash Museum. They're hinting at it even back then. Flash Museum, which is a thing in 2049. And I do like, right off the bat, the world building that they do. It starts off slow, and as you go throughout the season, I notice they bring other thing in. You have the Barry and Iris stuff. They use flashbacks in this season, much like what Arrow did, but they don't. Unlike Arrow, depending on the flashbacks, here they're used sparingly. Like there are some episodes they're used where they're needed. Some episodes will have Joe flashing back to certain moments, or Barry thinking about certain moments, stuff like that. You'll get flashback moments that work. It's not every episode like Arrow, which I'm glad that they changed it up, because you don't want to have it the same exact format as Arrow. You know, as I said with Lost, sometimes the flashbacks work and sometimes they don't work. Such as in season 3 of Lost, when they're putting in flashbacks to how Jack got his damn tattoo, and we don't really need to know that because they're running out of ideas, and so they're putting in filler. And because every episode has to have some kind of flashback, we get a flashback about Jack Shephard's fucking tattoo. Okay? And here, all the flashbacks are important. They tell the story of stuff we didn't know before, and they save them. Instead of blowing their whole wad right away, they save them for certain moments throughout the season, and I like that. Let's talk about the characters. I think Grant Gustin, though he doesn't look anything like Barry Allen from the comics, he's not muscly, he doesn't have blonde hair, but I think he's a great portrayal of Barry Allen, the Flash. And going back to season 1, I forgot just how great the writing, the acting, and the storytelling was. Not that everything has gone to shit, but in recent years, especially with 3 different showrunners over the course of 9 years now, some things changed between showrunners. Andrew Kreisberg, who was the showrunner of season 1, had a clear path going. And he spent a hell of a good time building this world. Like I said, you have the main characters, Barry Allen the Flash, Cisco Ramon, Caitlin Snow, Eddie Thawne, Iris West, Joe West, and Harrison Wells, a.k.a. Eobard Thawne, spoiler alert. And I like that they built the mystery with the Reverse Flash. And, you know, I actually forgot, for the last few years, what's his name? The current showrunner, I forget his name. Back when it's not Tad Helbing, it's the other guy. Eric Wallace has done this thing where he does graphic novels, where you have a few episodes, some filler, a few more episodes, and it's like, he was doing 2 graphic novels during season 6, and then they had COVID happen, so they had to cut it, and so for season 7, he had to finish 1 graphic novel from the last one and added 2 more, and decided to do it again for season 8. But the problem with that is originally they only had a short amount of episodes. Then they had like 18, and they doubled it to 20, and then they decided to add 2 more filler episodes in, and it's just too much filler. I think it distracts from the story. When you have one, which is why, season 9 has 13 episodes. I think it should be 1 story. Not a graphic novel format, 1 story. 1 villain, 1 final story, because 1, it's short, and 2, especially going back watching season 1, I know there's some filler stuff, but each thing in this season builds to something. Each villain he comes across comes together and builds to another story. Alright? What are they doing? There's metahumans showing up in Central City. They're capturing them. They're putting in little pods in the particle accelerator at Star Labs. Being put in there. And hell, there's like 5 of them by the time we get to this one. And then what do? There's an episode called Rogue Air, where they have to take them out because Eobard Wells is going to restart the particle accelerator. So they're taking them away. They put them on the NU. Well, the episode can be considered filler. It works because you spent all this time building these villain characters. And now that you got Weather Wizard, the Peekaboo, the Gas one, a couple others. all building together, and Captain Cold, which, by the way, is my favorite recurring villain of the Flash, by the way, portrayed by Wentworth Miller. The casting of the actors as well. You have Wentworth Miller and Dominic Purcell, who were both Michael Schofield and Lincoln Burrows on Prison Break, and also Robert Knepper, who was T-Bone, something like that, on Prison Break, is William Talkman, aka the Clock King, who first appeared on Arrow, but he makes an appearance in this episode. And the thing about that episode is that they're in the middle of doing something, and then like there's one thing going on. Barry doesn't have any powers. There's one big thing going on with a meta, and then you have Talkman doing something in Central City, and so there's so much going on. Barry doesn't have powers at the time, so I think it's the electric one, isn't it? Because it zaps his powers away. And normally you wouldn't think they'd do he got his power taken away in the first season, but they do, and it's like, but it's one of those things where you're like, oh, you know he's gonna get him back because this show's called The Flash, and it's not the final season, so you know. They also set this story that they never fully completed right. As I think Andrew Kreisberg had a plan for what they were doing. I think initially the plan was to at least get to 10 seasons, but it would end in 2024 because they set up this newspaper. From 2024, written by Iris West Allen for the Central City Citizen, which by this point doesn't exist. Iris isn't married to Barry, she's dating Eddie Thawne. And this newspaper looms over the entire series. It's something that Thawne keeps going back to, or Wells, whatever, keeps going back to check to make sure everything is going the way it's supposed to. And I love the story of the Reverse Flash. He doesn't tell the entire complete story here, but he hates the Flash. He wants to kill the Flash, so he went back in time. He wasn't trying to kill Nora Allen. He wanted to kill the Flash. He wanted to kill young Barry when he was little, before he was the Flash. But that time's Flash followed him. Present day Flash, or whatever. Future Flash followed him. Went back and stopped him. Saved young Barry. And so he killed Nora. And the bittersweet part about this is that he didn't have enough, because he's an artificial speedster. We find out later he created the negative speed force. So he's an artificial speedster. He's not a real speedster like Barry. He's an artificial speedster. So he created the negative speed force, but he wasn't powerful enough at that point. He got stuck in the past. So the bittersweet part about it is he killed Nora Allen so that it would devastate Barry enough to where it changed his future and not become the Flash. But to get back to his time, he must create the Flash. He must create what he hates. And we find out that in the original timeline, Barry did not become the Flash until the year 2020, when the particle accelerator went off and turned him into the Flash. Here, it's 16 years later. 6 years later, 6 years earlier, 6 years earlier than he's supposed to. And so everything is different, and he's forced, I often forgot, because Tom Cavanaugh is such a good actor, and Wells keeps helping him, and it's even addressed by Barry himself, is that he's so helpful, and he's always there, and he's giving good advice, that he often forgets that he's the villain. And especially when it's and you're rewatching this, and from the beginning that he's the bad guy, and they hint at it, and they do such a good job of foreshadowing. Like, they show you there's something with him. He's not really in a wheelchair. What's going on? And I think the fact that they have the character of Eddie Thawne in this season, where he's supposed to be a red herring for comic book fans who know about Eobard Thawne, you think, Thawne, could it be Eddie? But then there's something going on with Wells, But Wells is an original character, so you're not quite sure what's going on. Is Wells a separate entity? Is Eddie actually the Reverse Flash? What's going on? And then it's revealed, boom, Reverse Flash is Wells. So who's Eddie? Eddie is a distant relative, and he's the hero ultimately at the end of this. And we also expand with other characters. There's this whole thing with Caitlin Snow's fiance, Ronnie, played by Robbie Amell, the cousin of Stephen Amell, who was the Arrow. But wait, I'm not gonna talk about the Flash vs. Arrow crossover. It's great, but if you want my full thoughts on that, I did a review on it, so check that out. But there's like actually 3 different crossover type things with Arrow. There's Flash vs. Arrow. There's an episode which Felicity and Ray Palmer show up so that Cisco can help with Ray's Atom suit. And there's an episode where Cisco and Joe go to Starling City, that's what it was called back then, to look over the crash site of where Harrison Wells' crash was, and they find Harrison Wells' body. But back to, with Ronnie, and then there's this fireman, whatever you call him, flame man, whatever they call him, and it ends up being Ronnie. They're similar names, but with Professor Martin Stein's mind. So it was kind of mixed together. Like when you first see him and they go, Ronnie? He's like, I'm not Ronnie. But it's revealed that there was an experiment, which is one of the first things. I think this is not really retconning, because I think it was meant to happen, but Professor Stein was doing an experiment during the particle accelerator thing, and he and Ronnie got fused together because Ronnie was right there in the particle accelerator. They got fused together and they became Firestorm, which is from the comics, and then they separate them. And you're introduced to General Wade Eiling, who's another character from the comics, who was doing illegal experiments on Grodd. And when Wells found out, he stopped it, but Grodd is still around. He shows up. And again, building those characters you know from the comics with Captain Cold, with Heatwave, with Grodd, and Weather Wizard, and all those characters, minor as they may be, and only some of them are reoccurring, some of them aren't, but they're, Girder and Turtle. I think Turtle's in season 2, but still, they building these characters so that when they come back in future seasons, oh, it's that one. Oh, it's that one. Especially with Snart. When Snart shows up, I always smile because that's my favorite recurring villain. Beyond Grodd and Eiling. And Clancy Brown as General Eiling is perfect casting. You want someone to play a gruff, tough, general character, military character, I should say. Clancy Brown is great for the role. Wish he had his goatee, because he kind of looks weird without the goatee, but he looks good. He's great in the role. And, there's also characters that you don't catch, like, oh, by the way, also in that episode, Laurel is also in the episode where they go to Starling City. I forgot to mention that. There's a thing with her canary cry that Cisco fixes. But other characters, you get Sing and Cecile, who is now a regular, and I never realized she was in season 1. She pops up like 2 times. I'm like, Cecile, and I'm like, jeez, and it, I'm not gonna spoil where her character goes. A lot of bitching about her character in this season, and I think the biggest problem they have now is that they've moved so far away from just focusing on the Flash. This season, while there are other characters around, the main focus is the Flash. But nowadays, you get entire episodes dedicated to another character. There's an episode in season 8 where Barry is trying to investigate a new speedster. But most of the focus of the episode is on Allegra and her and the people of the Central City Citizen trapped in the blackout. And that episode frustrated me because I wanted to see what was going on with Barry, and we keep moving away to the other story that no one cares about. In this season, the Flash is front and center. Most of everything that happens in here is with the Flash. And even if there's something like with the Ryan situation, there's always something else going on with the Flash. We're following Caitlin and Cisco trying to track down Ronnie, but there's also something going on with the Flash. Maybe there's something going on with Iris and again, the Flash is also involved in some of this stuff. Where like nowadays there be separate stories. Sometimes there's problems between Iris and Eddie, but who's right there? Barry, because they're at dinner with Felicity and Ray, and yeah, it connects together. The storytelling is so great in this season, and especially with a great villain like the Reverse Flash, and portrayed very well by Tom Cavanaugh. And then you have that flashback episode, which I thought was Who is Harrison Wells, but it's actually a few episodes before that, where we keep going into flashbacks of what really happened after he was trapped there. He tracked down Harrison Wells, caused a car accident, killing Tess Morgan, Harrison Wells' wife, killed the real Harrison Wells, took his form, and began working on a particle accelerator earlier than expected to get it done so that he could create the Flash and go, And I like how there's two different, like Harrison Wells is an actual person, but then you also have Eobard Thawne played by Matt Lesher. And a lot of people keep saying they want Matt Lesher to come back. You got it. He came back in season 8. It was a little bit different, but I did overall like that story. But here, two different sides. Matt Lesher is also great. If you want like a full Matt Lesher Reverse Flash, Legends of Tomorrow season 2, trust me, you'll get all your Matt Lesher Reverse Flash needs you want there. But yes, I don't know if I have any real negatives in this season, to be honest. Maybe like the way this season ends. So the whole thing with the Reverse Flash, that he wants to go home, and he's been rebuilding the particle accelerator so that he can have Barry. He needs Barry's speed. This is why he's trying to make him faster, so he can go fast enough to collide with one of the particles and create a wormhole in space-time so that he can go to the future and Barry can go back in time to save his mom. The only problem with that is comic book fans know when he saves his mom, Flashpoint happens. They don't do it yet, but he goes back and he sees his mom, but he does not save her, and he stops Wells from going to the future. My problem is, like, why would he do that? Like, I get it. Wells goes to the future. His father, who was blamed for the murder of his mom, doesn't go free. But Barry comes in, Flash comes in, destroys the time, or at least smashes it up a little bit, so that he can't go to the future. And he's all pissed, and he's about to kill Barry or whoever. And Eddie Thawne shoots himself in the heart. Without Eddie, there is no Thawne, although other writers would get around this and have very little explanation as to how it works. But for this one, yeah, they even hint at season 2 with a golden helmet flying through, and they say, "What's that?" To which Thawne says, "That's my cue to go home," or something like that. Not really. We see what comes of that, but yeah. And there's, notice there's no, other than that, there's no real setup for season 2. There's the singularity, which the season ends with Barry running up the building into the singularity and ends, which I understand they weren't sure how to do a cliffhanger, because they had the singularity going. And I don't know. They mentioned the singularity beforehand, and maybe that's my criticism, is that I don't think it was necessary to have a singularity. But I think if they were to set up something, if they had the foresight to write something better, I think it would be like this. There is a singularity, but there's the wormhole, the helmet goes through, but he gets back in time and it closes, Thawne's like, no, that was my only chance. Eddie does the thing. He's gone. And as they're all kind of celebrating, Buttbury's like, my dad's still in prison. Maybe with the wrap up, they find the message from Thawne confessing to the murders, and he gets out, and they're all celebrating, and they're hugging and stuff. And then that's when someone goes, "Can you help me? I don't think I'm on my Earth anymore. Who are you?" "My name is Jay Garrick." Boom, and there. And yes, Jay Garrick kinda is in season 2. That is a real hint to season 2. But anything like this, maybe they weren't sure. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they hinted at Jay Garrick. Maybe they didn't have an actor cast. That'd be another thing. But I always felt like waiting till next season for the Henry Allenby released from prison thing, when this whole thing that Barry's been doing as a leading to that was a little too much. Like a little too much of a wait, but it's fine. This season was actually really good to go back and watch. The writing is so good. The action scenes, for the most part. The only thing I really had, here's my big negative, the CGI. Oh boy, especially when I'm watching in HD. Oh boy, is some of the CGI not so good. And I'd like to say it got better, and it may have, but not as much. Oh boy, some of the CGI in this season is just oof. But for the most part, I really enjoyed going back and watching this. I think that this is a very cohesive season. Even for a 23 episode season, people say it was a lot of filler. If you can write a compelling story and spread it over, you don't need filler episodes. Even in some of the episodes you can consider filler, there was still other stuff going on related to the ongoing story. Unlike current seasons where the filler just stops everything that the story is because we have to do graphic novels. So we do one little story and then a bunch of filler not connected. Although in season 8 there was some little threads going on. But please, Eric Wallace, if you're watching this, which you're not, if you are, just tell one cohesive story in season 9. End it with one villain. That's all we need. Okay? That said, what are your thoughts on The Flash season 1? Leave them in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.